pristine fair, while Nirupama Rao says it's not the divided states of America, it's the United States, the fact is it's divided. You've got a country badly split wide open with a president who's openly saying now that he will go to the court if he doesn't win, calling the election a fraud. Where does that leave America today? At the end of 24 hours after counting began, we don't know who the next president will be, and there's the real possibility of prolonged uncertainty. Do you see that as something that will, in a way, become a moment of democratic delegitimization of American elections?
Well, so first of all, I really love Nirupama Rao, but she's a diplomat, and as you know, I'm not. I knew Trump was going to win in 2016, and I've been saying that he's going to win this again, because I think what foreigners who, especially people who spend time in the coasts, don't understand is that Americans who live between the coasts are very different from people who live on the coast. So we're not only ideologically divided, but largely the ideological divide maps onto geographical divide. So I'm a fairly classic story. I grew up in an archipelago of rural hellholes in Indiana, and I wanted to get out because this was not a place where I wanted to live. And so you have this sorting that's happening over time. People are leaving rural areas and they're either going to coastal cities or they're going to cities within their region. So people from Indiana who are more cosmopolitan, they will move to Chicago, they will move to Indianapolis. And unfortunately, one of the problems with the polls, and I do quantitative work as well, I've done quite a bit of survey work. I have been lecturing people for years. The reasons why these don't work, especially for the United States, is that one, very few people take the polls, and statistically this produces a very biased sample. Second, we don't elect the president directly. We are not a democracy. We have a political system that was designed really for white males and increasingly for white women. This system is not going to change because it does very significantly entrench white supremacy, right? You have to understand the history of voting in the United States. I would recommend a fabulous book by Professor Carol Anderson called One Person, No Vote. So our system hasn't worked for a lot of people for a long time. So what you would actually need for these polls to work is statistically significant samples at the state level, which given the response rate is virtually impossible.
Right.
And then you have to filter those results through the math of the Electoral College. And the Electoral College is also deeply antiquated and quite frankly, deeply offensive to many of us who value democracy because it came out of the 3/5 compromise following the Civil War and trying to accommodate the interests of those states that devalued the lives of recently freed African Americans, right? So this is a system that's very old. It has never worked.
No, I take that point.
All Americans.
But let's be very clear. The fact is that you've got an American president who's going to probably question the mandate in itself. I just wonder.
Well, he's already done that. So to be very clear, he's already done that, right? And this has actually been. So let's be clear again. He questioned the mandate of his own election in 2016, right? He said that he also won the popular vote. His strategy from day one has been to delegitimize any electoral process that does not produce him as the winner. And I think one of the most savage and unbelievable crimes of this administration has been politicizing the mail-in ballot. Our military and other deployed civilians have long used the mail-in ballot to cast their vote. And he has gone at that very mechanism to try and delegitimize it. Now, and let me explain why that's important, because I don't think your viewers understand this, right? So we have very extensive voter suppression efforts in states. So this happens by taking people off the rolls on election day itself, particularly in African-American areas, diminishing the number of poll booths available so that they have to wait in line. It's not a holiday. So if you have to wait in line for 8 hours to vote, you're losing 8 hours of income, right? the mail-in ballot essentially circumvents so many well-honed Republican voter suppression techniques. And he knows that this is the case, which is why he has tried to invalidate this.
But this was, of course, important because it was a COVID year. So we've had 102 million mail-in ballots, which has transformed the entire election. But Michael Kugelman, the question still remains, how did the pollsters and the media get it so wrong? We were all
I just explained to you that, by the way.
I'll come to that, Christine, in a moment.
Let Michael Kugelman mansplain it for your viewers.
I'll give you 30 seconds because I've got lots of guests that I want to go to. Let me